Test, test, test. There we go. All right. Thank you guys for coming. Really, really appreciate it. I know some of you have even traveled from like San Diego, actually a lot of SoCal people. So I promise I'm gonna make it worth your time. Today I'm just gonna be teaching you guys how to find deals for newbies. So like the free ways, the cheap ways, because most newbies, like they don't have tons of money to spare. So hopefully you're in the right spot. Now, if you guys don't know me at all, my name is Justin, you're wrong. I have been investing in houses for the last 5 years. And I started in California. I started when I was in college, bought my first rental at a senior year. I think I was like 21. And then little by little, I learned flipping and then wholesaling. For a couple years, I was living here in Vegas, and I flipped virtually in California, Fresno, California. And now I'm here in Vegas, finally back, flipping here about 2 to 4 homes a month. So I'm going to teach you guys how we find deals. I'm not going to teach you all our methods because some of them just won't make sense for you guys. But I'm going to teach you the methods that we still use today because they're free and they're cheap. So, fair? Yep. All right, cool. So let me give you an idea of how it's going to work too. So I'm going to only talk for maybe 30, 40 minutes. You guys will have time for some Q&As because I'm sure a lot of you guys will be curious about how to like actually do it. And then I'm going to leave some room, maybe an hour and a half for networking. And before I break you guys out, I'll teach you guys how to network properly so you're getting the most out of it and you're not just talking to people like randomly. So you guys can actually talk to people and get value for your own business. And at the end, I like that this is a smaller group because we're going to have a couple mastermind groups. Has anyone done a mastermind? Like a mastermind circle where you talked? No one's done it. There we go. Okay, so a mastermind, like the real definition of it is when there's a group of people, like-minded, similar interest, talking about their goals and what they're trying to achieve. And the goal of these mastermind groups, I'll probably break you guys out into groups of 4 or 5. I'll try to push you in similar skill levels so you can talk about what you're doing in your business, even if you're just starting, and what you're struggling with, and everyone's going to kind of give feedback and solutions and work together. And masterminds are super powerful. My first mastermind was actually with Ryan Pineda, and it was upstairs in his office. I was one of the earlier students, and I remember since I did that first mastermind, it was just like 20 people at a table, and he was like, "What's going on with your business?" And everyone was just sharing everything, their struggles, and ever since, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. And so that's why I like to do these at my meetups too. So any questions about me before I just get into it? All right. So finding deals for newbies. Before I talk about like how to find deals, I should probably define what a deal is. So for me, a deal is just a chance for you to buy a house from a homeowner, make sense for them, and for you to make a profit. Because I don't want you guys to just think, oh, I'm going to get something under contract and it's a deal. If you get something at market value, it's not a deal. You're going to be wasting your money, wasting your time, effort, energy. This means you have to actually analyze the deal and you have to speak to either the seller or a representative of the seller, like the wholesaler or an agent. So that's, in my definition, that's what a deal is. Now, everyone has their own definition, like they talk specific numbers, but that's what a deal is. It's a discounted thing where you can get and make a profit. Now, there are only 2 ways you get deals. You talk to people and you make offers. I don't know any other way you can get a deal without talking to people and making offers. So if you're afraid to talk to people, that's okay. You have to start doing it though, because if you don't, and you don't do it on volume, you are not going to get deals, and that's a promise. Now, 2 main methods to find deals. You can find deals for free, or you can find deals for paid methods. So it's free or paid, and there's also on-market or off-market. So on-market deals, when I say that, it's deals that are listed with realtors on the MLS. Off-market is when you're talking to the sellers directly. There's no listings on the MLS, but they still want to sell. Make sense? Okay. Now, the only things that I want to talk to you guys about today in terms of finding deals, because I'm not trying to overwhelm you, is the 3 main methods that I think are the easiest ways or the cheapest ways, the free ways to find deals for newbies. Like, I talked to a lot of you guys just before this, and I know a lot of you guys have tried different things. Like some people were door knocking, some people are mailing, some people are doing all these different things. Everything does work, but some things just work better. And I'm not going to tell you to go door knock 500 doors when I know it's not going to be as effective as these other things. I'm not going to tell you to send direct mail when you don't have the budget for it. So these are the things, like the free strategies are making offers on the MLS. And a lot of new investors and wholesalers think that you can't get deals on the MLS. But I promise you, you can. We do. Our last 3 deals came from agents. So, and that was last month. So you can definitely find deals on the MLS. You just have to be willing to put in the work and get rejected over and over and over again. There's also agent and wholesaler networking. So there's a difference. So when I'm saying MLS offers, I'm talking about calling the agents on their listings and going, hey, like, would you entertain an offer of this? And most of the time it's just, no, like, get out of my face. I'm like, okay, no worries. Like, do you have anything else? But agent and wholesaler networking, that's when you're kind of doing cold outreach to these agents when they don't even have listings that you know of, and you're just straight cold calling them. And you're saying, hey, like, this is Justin Wrong, how are you doing? And you're asking them if they have any distressed properties or maybe any fixers, any deals that might make sense for an investor, however you want to word it. Most of the time it's no. Sometimes it's, actually a lot of times it's very negative responses, which is okay because not every realtor is made for the investing side of things. Maybe to give you guys some perspective, there's 17,000 agents in Vegas. We've contacted all of them. And then over and over again, I think Michelle is a testament to it. She's here from our like texts that are just going out over and over again. But we contacted everyone. And out of the 17,000 people, we've marked about like 150, like 150 agents as decent agents for us in terms of that they're going to send us deals and they're decent at finding good deals. So 150 out of 17,000 active agents. So it gives you guys some perspective that you have to really go through the list of agents, call them, and try. You're not just going to call 10 agents and find a deal. Well, you might, but it's not going to be repeatable. And then wholesaler networking, this mainly makes sense. Does anyone not know what a wholesaler is? And that's okay. Or like wholesaling? Oh, that's good. Okay. So you can find deals from wholesalers. And I would recommend this strategy if you're buying yourself. Because if you're wholesaling yourself and you're trying to find deals from wholesalers, you can still make profit there. You can help them find buyers and make a profit in the middle. So for example, if a wholesaler brought you a deal, they said their asking price is 100K. And you might ask him, hey, I think I might have a buyer for this. If I'm able to find a buyer at say like 110K, can I send it to you and can I make the difference, the 10K difference? And they'll give you a thumbs up and you can make money that way. But if you're wholesaling yourself, I really do recommend just trying to find your own deals because that's what you have to get good at if you want to make money as a wholesaler. If you're buying, it's great. Like actually, if you're buying, that's one of the easiest ways to find deals because wholesalers are trained to find discounted deals. They're different than agents. Wholesalers know what a deal is. They analyze the after repair value. They'll see kind of what the rehab cost is. They'll send you pictures. They'll tell you about the roof condition. They know what you're looking for. And so it's honestly one of the most effective ways you can find deals if you're buying yourself. And then there's cold calling. And this is a paid strategy. It might not be super expensive, but when I say cold calling, I'm saying cold calling direct to seller. So you're calling these sellers directly over and over and over again. And it's not like you're cold calling 100 a day. Like you're cold calling as much as you possibly can. To give you some perspective, this is my old data. We're actually bringing cold calling back. So we're bringing some VAs back to start cold calling. But back when that was my main thing in California, I would get a deal every 50,000 to 100,000 dials, calls. So whether that was me calling, whether that was a VA calling, whether it was like my lead manager calling, every 50,000 or 100,000 dials, we would start pulling in deals. So it's not like you're calling 10 a day, so it does take money. It's not super expensive. And these are my favorite methods to find deals for cheap. Like there's other things, you can text sellers, but that's a little bit more pricey. You can door knock, but that's super time consuming. And I found a deal before when I was starting out door knocking, but I was cold calling first. I was texting them first, and then I would knock on their door. I would never tell someone to just cold door knock. I think it's a waste of time. So whatever method you choose though, I want to make sure you guys actually stick to it. The hardest part of this business is the finding the deals portion. And most people just give up too soon. Like maybe they've been doing it for, maybe they do it for 90 days, but they weren't doing it full time for 90 days. Maybe they're spending an hour a day doing it. And so they might feel really discouraged because they're thinking, man, I've been doing this for so long. I haven't gotten anything. And when I say 90 days, like most people can get a deal within 90 days if they're doing that like all in for 90 days. I think a lot sooner actually. But if you're only giving a little bit of effort every single day, you just have to realize it might take a little bit longer. And that's okay too. That's why I'm pushing people to do the cheap and the free methods. Because when I was starting out, even though, like, let's say at the beginning, I did cold calling, but when I was not as experienced, I hired 2 virtual assistants in the Philippines to start cold calling. And I had a lead manager to help me manage all the leads. And I should have been more experienced because I was starting to burn money. And that's what a lot of people do. And like, let's say 6 months goes by, and I'm like, wow, I haven't really gotten a deal yet. I'm burning my money. I want to make sure you guys pick a method for yourself that you can actually sustain. Like if you're doing direct mail, most people are spending at least $3,000 to $4,000 a month doing direct mail. And you're like, yeah, I have that. But do you have that for a year? And then, does that make sense? Like, I don't want you guys to burn your money. That's why I like these methods for you guys. So the first method that I like I said, MLS, I kind of explained what it was, is deals on the MLS. Now, here are the key points. Here's how you succeed. Use auto prospecting searches. I'll show you the good ones. And I was really hesitant actually about sharing making this presentation. A lot of this stuff I share for our students. And I was super hesitant because I'm like, I'm going to be spilling like all the secrets. So I was like, all right, we're going to share it anyways. Because I know, as sad as this might sound, I know only a few of you will do it. Because most people, once you learn what you need to do, only a few actually do it. And some people just need help with implementation, and that's okay. So the key to success, use the auto searches. You make a ton of offers. You track those offers, and you follow up. That's all it is. In terms of who should represent you, oftentimes we have the listing agents represent us. So especially if they're finding or sending us the deals themselves, I want to make sure that I'm giving them incentive to send us more deals. So I always let them know you can represent us on the deals that you send us. But oftentimes, if we're finding the deals ourselves, we'll try to represent ourselves with the agents that we have on our team. Make sense? All right.
What do you mean represent?
Oh yeah, so a lot of these deals that are on the MLS, well, all of them, there's going to be a seller's agent and there's a buyer's agent.
So you have to have an agent?
Yeah.
No matter what?
Yeah.
Never do it without an agent.
If it's on the MLS. If it's off the MLS, you don't need one. Yeah.
Do you find that it's easier to just go to the listing agent if you're scrolling through and you find a deal? Is it easier to present to go straight to that listing agent and say, hey, look, you can double in that deal? Just
Yeah.
with us?
Especially if you don't have a good one on your team that'll split their commission with you. Absolutely. That's the first thing we do. So if you're finding a deal on your own and you don't want to represent yourself, often I just call the listing agent right away. I'm like, hey, do you work with cash buyers at all? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. I'm cool. Do you think if we came lower than asking, it would make sense for your seller if we came in at cash?
Do you ever find that you are having to educate the listing agent if you're trying to if you're trying to present an offer with terms, if they're not familiar with how to structure a creative deal?
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of times. But we don't start with that. We always start with a cash offer, and if it doesn't make sense and we think it could, these are usually the ones that have been on market for a long time, we can pitch creative. But yeah, actually a lot of agents now, they understand it. I think so many people have been doing it that a lot of them get it now. But yeah, sometimes you have to educate. So, okay, here's one of my favorite prospecting searches. It's just a keyword search. So you can say to the MLS, or you can have a realtor do it for you, say, if any listing on the market has any of these keywords in the public remarks, so just that's what you guys see on Zillow and stuff, or the agent remarks. And if you guys are not familiar, agent remarks and public remarks are different. Agent remarks are the notes that agents leave to other agents that no other sellers see, or if you don't have MLS access, you can't see. So you can set these searches to say if any listing has these words in it, whether it's like newly on market or someone updated their listing and they now have these words in it, we'll know about it. And you have to offer right away. You have to be calling them like, hey, I saw this house, I'm interested, and you just have to make your offers. So this is one of my favorite searches. Now, the hardest part about this is not the searches. The searches are easy. That's why I'm giving it to you guys. The hard part is calling them because there's a ton. There's always a ton of properties on the MLS. Right now, for the MLS specifically, we're trying to make about 75 offers a day. That's kind of where we're at right now. That's how we're getting a lot of our deals. So it's quite a bit. Now, that's one of my favorite searches, fixer, fixer-upper. You guys can see it all. And does anyone have questions on any of these words and why? Okay, I think it's self-explanatory. Now, this is my favorite search. I almost deleted the slide, to be honest with you guys. But let me explain it. So on the MLS, for every single zip code, you have to do it individually for zip code. You can filter the zip code by price or the price per square foot, and you can go lowest to highest. So on every property that's listed, or even, we do the listed, the active listings. If you sort price per square foot lowest to highest, and you pick the 5th lowest one, you can set a search in the MLS saying, if there's any properties in this zip code for this property type, like a condo or single family, I want to know about it. Because what that does is that it identifies all the good low properties right away. And so instead of you having to search and hunt all the properties on the MLS, you see the good ones right away on top of the keyword searches. Because the keyword searches everyone knows about. This one, not a lot of people do. That's why I was hesitant about making this one. And if you do this, you make sure you have to do the same zip code, or different zip codes. You can't do it for the whole city. Because if you do this and you do it for the whole city, there's like good areas and there's the ghetto. And it doesn't make sense if you say, give me all properties under this price per square foot for the city, and you're just gonna see a bunch of like no deals. So you have to do this one by one per zip code, per property type, whether it's a single family home, condo, townhome, whatever you're looking for. Does anyone have questions on this? Because I know this one might be confusing. Is anyone going to do this?
Like identifying A, B, A,
Great.
B, and C. How about
Yeah.
like A, B, and C, like neighborhoods? Like so,
Hmm?
you said the hood, basically. Right?
Yeah.
It's like that's C class, but
Yeah.
Let's be real. There's gentrification. I know there's spots in Vegas that I drive through where it's like, hey, there's potential for a lot of value add opportunities, as they call it.
Oh yeah, you can find deals in
Downtown.
bad areas, good areas, everywhere. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I set it up. I did that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, straight from the video.
Good. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's what we give our students this. This is also another search. Now, this is, if you're going to prioritize, this is my least, lesser priority, days on market search, because these are the ones that everyone's already ran through. So these are the deals where you can set a search saying if any properties hit 30 days on market, 45 days on market, 60 days on market, I want it to send to us. But all the investors already offered on it. And so now it's just talking to the agent and seeing how desperate their seller gets. So these kind of deals are when the sellers and the agents get desperate. And what I mean by that is most agents, when they list a property, they list it for let's say a 6-month period, 180 days or so. If you're calling a property at, let's say 180 days on market, something's wrong. It's priced too high. And then if I call the agent, I'm like, hey, what's going on with this one? It's been on market for quite a bit. And a lot of times you can get on the agent's side. So if they're like, yeah, the seller's really stubborn on this, I don't know how we're going to sell this. I'm like, man, what do you think they need? What's their bottom line on this? And they'll just flat out tell you because they're so motivated. The realtor, they want to make their commission. And so you can get on their side and you can say, hey, look, I want to make this happen. Do you think they'd be open to creative finance or a seller finance deal if this cash offer doesn't work? And if they are, those where a lot of the creative deals are. So if you guys are looking for rentals yourself, this is probably a really good method for you. All right, now here's how to actually do it, because I gave you the general overview, but in terms of getting the deals yourself, it's more complicated than just making offers and calling people. Like there's a sales component to it. And this is a sales business. If you're not willing to call people and negotiate and push, you're not going to get these deals. So how to get deals on the MLS? I try to make this as simple as possible. You reach out to the agents, as many as you can on their listings. You make the offers. If they say no, you don't just say, all right, like, no worries. You try to see if it could actually work. Because a no, maybe I say this. If I'm talking to someone and they're like, no, I don't think so. I don't think they'll accept that. I want to get clarification. I'm like, what do you mean by that? Like, are we close? Are we super far off? What do you mean? Versus if they go, no, absolutely not. There's not a chance they're going to go anywhere near that price. I'm like, okay, do you have anything else? Like that's a different kind of conversation. Most people are afraid to ask if they have anything else. That's where we get all our deals. Because even if we're calling on the listings, most of our deals from agents are pocket listings. And pocket listings, I don't even know if it's legal, but people do it. Like agents will have deals in their pipeline. And so they'll have deals that they're not listed on the MLS just yet, but maybe they're about to pretty soon. Or because they know it's a distressed seller and they're like, I don't know if I should even list this one. I don't know what to do. And so if we're calling the agent at the right time, which it's very possible if you're calling enough agents, they're going to tell you, actually, I have this one that makes sense for a flip. It's horrible condition. It's like, there's a hoarder in here. And I'll go, oh, perfect. Like, that's what we want. And so they'll send you a lot of stuff that's off market. So you have to make sure you're asking the question. When they do send you a deal, though, the biggest problem that I see new investors in terms of getting deals from agents where they go wrong is they're not trying on hard enough to close the deal, to like actually do the sales. They'll make their offers. They'll have a bunch of leads. And then when you ask them, like, how are your leads going? They're like, oh, I don't really know. It's going all right. I'm like, which ones are you working on? What's the ones that you think are hot that you can get? Like, why aren't you calling them right now? And I heard this analogy. My partner, Brian, he gave me this analogy before. And because we were on the same page about why students don't get deals. And it was that. The analogy was, I think he was out at like a restaurant and he tried to open the door and it didn't open. And so he's like, all right, just go to the next restaurant next door if this one was open. And so when he went next door, there's a sign on the door that said, if you're coming from this restaurant, just pull really hard on their door. And he's like, oh, okay. He went back and he like pulled really hard and he got it open. And then he thought of, that's just like these deals, is most people are so close. They're right there. They have the lead in front of them. They're one of the few investors talking to the agent. But if they're not pulling hard enough, if they're not saying and like pushing them to write up the offer and get it done, they're not going to get the deal. So for example, when most people talk to agents, let's say you're kind of close on price. Let's say your offer was $330,000 and their listing price was $350K. To me, that's really close. So some of you, that might be really far, but to me, that's insanely close. And so for that, if I say, hey, I think we're going to need to be around $330K, and I just kind of wait to see what they say. And they're like, I think we have another investor at 340 or someone. They'll say something. Most people will go, all right, on to the next one. Like, whoa, like that was really close. So for those, I'm always trying to ask more questions. I'm like, what are the terms on this other investor? Do you think they'll close? Who's the guy? I'll always ask who the investor is because I know people here. And they're like, oh, it's this person. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I think he because I know when people actually back out of transactions, I'm like, oh, he backed out of one last week. Like I'll say stuff like that. I'll say, or if they don't know the person, like, have you ever worked with this person before? And they'll go, no. I'm like, oh, so you don't know if they're going to close. And so there's like, you can say stuff to push people to do what you want, but you have to be aggressive enough to do it. And for that, like if say I offer 330K and they were asking 350, I might ask, hey, is there a chance we can actually see this one? Because I want the seller to know that we're really interested in the one if we're close. I don't walk every property. Or I'll say, can you write up this offer? And they might go, yeah, I can write this up like tonight at 7 p.m. And if it's like 1 p.m. right now, I might go, oh, can you do it right now? And they're like, no, like, I'm doing something. Like, oh, what's the soonest you can do? I mean, it just takes like a couple minutes, like just write it up and send it to me. And I'll get them to do it right then and there. Because how deals go on the MLS, when you wait too long, time is your enemy. You will lose the deal. Because let's say you guys were doing this and you had the 330K offer. Let's say I was 330K offer. You call the agent And you're like, yeah, we can write it up at 7. But what if I call right after you? I'm getting that one. And so that's the difference. Is you have to be aggressive when you actually get the leads. And this is like the stuff that no one tells you about. But that's the biggest difference. Does that make sense? And what I said, no one's afraid to do that, right? It didn't sound too aggressive. You can be aggressive, but also be really nice at the same time.
You have such a nice voice.
It's curiosity.
Your
Yeah.
voice gets me down.
Yeah.
You, like, slide around
It's
your-
curiosity. Like, can you do it? Like, what- yeah.
Your tone is very,
It's actually with agents. So I'll tell you the next strategy with because I talk in different tonalities for different things. So when I'm trying to really persuade someone, I kind of like go down and I'm like, like I try to act like, oh man, like I really want this and I need your help. Like I'll be your best friend. Like it's that kind of talk. But the big thing with agents too is just focus on the relationship. There's a reason why we're doing meetups. Like I want to meet all the agents, all the wholesalers in person. This is a different kind of meetup because it's a workshop. But most of them, like the last meetup, I organized the room by like who's in here, and there was a bunch of wholesalers and a bunch of agents. I was like, perfect. That's what I wanted. Like I don't want a ton of buyers in here because that's our competition. Like we're buying, but we try to bring them in the office. So if I'm ever coming across a good wholesaler or a good agent, I'm bringing them to office. I'm like, hey, you want to come to the office today? Like I want to see what you got going on. I'm sure we can help you. Like what do you got going on with your marketing? And they're like, oh, I'm struggling with this. And for me, my position's for more of authority. And I'll say like, I can help. Like, I know what you're doing with this. Or let's say a wholesaler is trying to cold call. I'm trying to give value to them and try to help them out. Because the more people that you just give value and you don't ask for anything back, they give stuff back. Like just this week, I think I had 3 wholesalers come to me. They're newer, but they called me and were like, hey, I got this deal I'm working on. I need help with it. Can you like help me comp it? I'll send it to you first. Like, can you come to the appointment with me? I'm nervous. I'm like, yeah, like I'll come to the appointment with you. And so it's all relationships with agents, wholesalers, all that. So that was the MLS. Any questions on MLS? All right. Okay. So this is the second marketing strategy. It's networking. So this is like cold outbound reach to agents and wholesalers. And the reason why I like it, it's free, just like the MLS, and it's a big form of leverage. So imagine if you were the one trying to find deals cold calling yourself. Let's say you're doing 20,000 dials a week, which is about like 40 hours of work. And I know because I've done it for a long time. But let's say you're cold calling versus you were talking to 10 agents and 10 wholesalers who are all cold calling that much. Now you're relying on them and their systems. So if you have the relationship with those people, you can be the top of their list. And so that's why I really, really like this method. It works for everyone. But at the same time, it takes aggression. It takes pursuing. So when someone tells me, I actually got this lead coming up next week, I'm like, cool. Do you think you'll actually, like, if it's a wholesaler, I'm like, do you think you'll lock it up next week? Or do you think you can lock it up today? What do you think? And I'll really try to get an idea of when the soonest time I should reach back out to them. And I'll just know about the deal before anyone else will, because I'm asking the right questions. Downside, and this is really the only downside to me, is you just don't learn to find your own deals, which is fine, because you can do this method for a long time and still get recurring deals. Because when someone sends you a deal and you close on it, whether you buy it or you're the wholesaler, they're going to trust you and they'll send you more and more and more. So it's kind of a small downside. The only thing you need for this too is a CRM and a phone. And actually, you don't even need a full CRM. You can use Google Sheets. We still use Google Sheets for a portion of our CRM. Go ahead. It's a customer relationship management system. It's just a way to track who you're talking to. And like, say I talk to this person and they say, oh, follow up with me next month. I have this deal coming next month. I could put it in there and I can mark it. I'm going to follow up with them on this month and it'll remind me. But CRMs don't have to be fancy. Like, it could be a Google Sheet. And you know what's funny? People don't believe me because I'm a bit younger. Sorry. My first CRM was papers, like file folders. So I had 12 file folders, you know, like the middle ones, 12 file folders for every single month. So January, February, so on. If I called a seller directly or anyone and they're like, oh yeah, check in with me soon. Like, I'm going to sell this. I'm like, cool. I'll call you in February. I had blank pieces of paper in a notebook. I'd rip it out of the notebook. I'd put it in the folder in February. I'm like, cool. I'm going to call them in February. And then every month I just open up the folder. I'm like, who are my leads? And I called them. That's how I learned, because my mentor, my first mentor in Fresno, He was old school. And that's how he taught me. He was like, you got to do this. I was like, all right, I'll do this. And then as I grew, I was talking to more friends and they're like, what are you doing? Like, they're like, pick up, like, what is this? I'm like, what do you do? And then I learned technology. So you don't need anything fancy. You can absolutely get deals with a cheap CRM. Just use Google Sheets if you don't have anything. It's free. Now, here's how you get deals. And this kind of relates to both agents and wholesalers. You call them over and over and over again. And over time, I think it helps to categorize agents as like, our categories for agents, it's tier 1 agent, tier 2 agent, bad agent. We have about like 900 bad agents, and our bad agents are ones that they are open to working with us, but they don't really come across deals. So tier 2 agents, they're the agents that come across deals maybe like 3 to 4 times a year. We want to get those. So they do sometimes find them. And the tier 1s are the ones that just find them a lot. And they don't buy them themselves. So you just call them every day, introduce yourself, build credibility any way you can. With agents, it's going to be like a pre-approval letter, proof of funds. With wholesalers, it's just talking to them. Most wholesalers don't ask for that stuff. And then always ask if they have deals. But don't treat it like you're a VA. Don't treat it like you don't care about the relationship. Don't call them like, hey, you got any deals? No, like it's hey John, like, how you doing, man? Like we talked last month. How's it been going? How's your business? And then it's like, do you have any deals, by the way? And you're like, no, you don't. I'm like, oh, so nothing coming up in your pipeline. He's like, no, so no hot leads that you're like working on, you think you can get soon. Because if I ask those 3 kinds of questions, one of them that often is yes. You're like, you know what, I am working on this one. And build the relationship. So building the relationship will look different for all of you because everyone here has different skill sets, different experiences. Most of my strategy for building relationships is just helping. And if I talk to anyone, there's always something I can do to bring value. Let's say I'm talking to an agent, or let's say I'm talking to a wholesaler, and I call them, they don't have any deals or nothing. I'm like, how's business? Like, how are you finding your deals, by the way? And they're like, oh, I'm cold calling myself. I go, oh, you're cold calling. Like, I used to do that a long time. How's it been going? And I'll ask them about their KPIs, like how many dials do you make? How many leads do you get? How many conversion, like what's your conversion rate look like? And if they know somewhat of their numbers, I can tell them like, oh, I know what's good, I know what's bad. So I can give suggestions and I can kind of coach. And that's super valuable for people. And I can always say like, hey, do you need help with your marketing at all? Come to the office, like come swing by. Like I'm here all the time. And they'll come by, they'll go at my computer and I'll help them out, or they'll come to the meetup. And if I do stuff like that, I'm the first one on their list. I'm the first one they call. So you can do that with anyone. It's just relationships. But don't treat it like a VA. Like the first couple people we had starting to call agents for us, they sounded like a VA, a virtual assistant, because it was always like, hey, you got any distressed deals? No, you got anything in your pipeline? No. All right, bye. Like they would hang up like, what are you doing? And so you have to train that with yourself. So it's a people business. It's not a real estate business. You have to treat people like people. Now, when someone sends you a deal, to treat them well, to be a good buyer, or if you're wholesaling and you want to help like dispo the deal or sell the deal, respond as quickly as you can. Speed matters. Because the worst thing is, like, let's say your systems aren't good or anything, and someone sends you a deal, and you respond a week later, you're like, hey, I got an offer on this. They're like, this is gone. Like, and they're just going to take you off their list. So our goal, we don't always hit it because we just have a ton of leads sent to us. But our goal is to be able to respond to the person that sends us a deal within 5 minutes, analyze it, and make an offer within 15. That's our goal. It doesn't always happen, but that's always the goal, because we don't want people waiting. And then most times, this is both with agents and with wholesalers. If you give a ridiculously low offer, one, you have to see if it's even worth making. For example, let's say their asking price is $400K, and you run the numbers, and you're like, you need to be at 200. And you talk to them, you're like, how flexible is a seller? Like, no, not flexible. You can go, okay, I don't know if this one will make sense. I know we're not going to be anywhere near asking. Do you have anything else? I might not even say the offer amount because I know it'll hurt the relationship. Versus if it's close enough, 100K off, I'm fine 100K off, but like 200K off is kind of the point where I'm thinking, all right, I'll give them an idea, like, hey, I'm below 300. And so they're not like pissed. But with wholesalers, especially if you're trying to buy the deals, it helps me the most to give reasoning, because especially if it's a new relationship and they send you a deal and they send the asking price at 300K, and you're saying I need to buy it at 200, you're gonna piss them off. And so usually I'll call them and I'll say, hey, like, do you have any flexibility on this offer? I think we're pretty far below. And they'll say no. I'm like, okay, I'll give the offer because I want to build a relationship. And they're gonna go, dang, like that's really low. And I'm like, I know. And I'll kind of say, well, here's how we came to it. So they understand, like, I think ARV is this. I think that's what it's gonna be worth after we fix up. Here's what I plan to put into it. Here's the exact profit we're gonna try to make on it. That's our minimum. We want to make 30K on every deal, at least. And they'll say, oh, I get it. And so if I can show them that, they'll still send me deals. With wholesalers and agents specifically, if you're going to track anything in terms of how they're going to send you deals, is do they know, like, and trust you? That's the KPI. That's the metric. And it's kind of hard to, like, measure, because how do you know if someone knows, like, and trust you? But let's say you call an agent for the first time, and maybe it was a great conversation. They know you, maybe not for long if you don't call them again. They might like you on the phone, but do they trust you fully? Probably not. That's why we do the meetups. That's why we're calling as much as possible, so they just know us. You have to make sure they know, like, and trust you. You have to give value. A lot of times at agency, if you just give them like any kind of referrals or just like let them know, hey, I might have a listing for you, you can get some great rapport with them. They're going to start sending you lots of stuff. But be a good buyer, do what you say. So try not to overcommit to stuff. If you think you can't buy it, don't just lock something up with the intention of dropping the price. I don't like that model, not at all. But whatever you say, whether it's you're talking to a wholesaler, you're talking to an agent, make sure you just do what you say you're going to do.
What do you mean, Justin, when you say like don't lock something up, but then your intention is to get a lower price? Like,
Well,
is that even a possibility?
It is, but some people.
Go back and try to renegotiate
It is, but some people have the full intention of like, I can't buy it at this price at all, knowing that they have to drop it. I don't like that. I like to be upfront with the agents, like, hey, like, we need to be here, and make it work. So everyone kind of has their own strategy on that.
So, when you use your own, like, I assume when you use your own agent,
Uh-huh.
you put some contingency there, some property contingency.
Mhm.
Sometimes the property doesn't come up to, maybe there's something where the price, mine will go down because of that. On your belief, on your side, because you don't go just blind whatever the listing agent says, and the seller says the amount. The seller agent is there to make more money, and sometimes they will get a listing just to get a listing. To be honest with you.
Yes,
And
exactly.
the property worth 300,
Mhm.
but the seller says, "Well, I want 350." Why? Because I feel good with 350. And the agent say, "Okay, we'll get the
Yep.
listing,
Yeah,
and then we'll go down 10%, 5%.
Yeah.
If that's go down."
yeah. I would rather be upfront, like, and
No,
say,
but some
yeah,
agents,
I know,
here.
I know.
But some agent they will take the listing. On the realtor word, they give you a word for how many listings you got, and so on.
Yeah.
And then how many
I
sales you
know.
do, different things. So
Yeah.
what happened if in that case, I assume your agent, because the listing agent might not do that.
Uh-huh.
Like, look the other way. By your agent, there will be a contingency based on the appraised value, unless you are cash. Even if you're cash.
The only
buyer.
contingency that we have is a due diligence period to
Oh.
be able to walk the home,
Well, walk
like
through.
an inspection one. And it's really just quick because like it's usually me or Brian walking it, and we just gonna see the property and see like if we can actually buy it. Because sometimes, let's say a wholesaler sends us a deal, and they're like, "Oh, this is an amazing deal." I look at the numbers, I'm like, "This is great," and I'll ask them like, "Is everything in good condition? Like, what about the roof, the HVAC? Like, what do you think?" Like, that's great. I'm like, "All right, like I need to walk this though," and I just walked one like the other day. And I thought everything was great. We were right there on. I almost got killed by a pit bull too, like one of their pit bulls. I was like, I'll tell you that later. But I looked at it. I'm like, I first came to the home like that roof is old, and then talking to the sellers, I'm like, how long have you had this roof in HVAC? Because it was on the roof, and he's like, oh yeah, they're both 20 years old. They both need to be replaced. I'm like, oh, and then I was like, what about other big ticket items in the house? He was like, oh, the foundation's cracked. I'm like, oh, okay. And then
I have a question
yeah.
on that. Because we've been noticing, like, when on a lot of the wholesale deals, it'll say, like, do not bother the, you know,
Yeah.
like, when you go to walk it. Like, is that something that that's pretty common, right?
Oh, yeah.
Don't bother.
Super common. But that one I walked, they had me act as like a contractor for their wholesale or their buyer team. And I was like, here, I'll be a contractor. And I'll walk through. I'm like, hey, I'm a contractor with Alex. I didn't even say that. I just walked through. But yeah, they'll often have that. But that's how to like treat agents and wholesalers. Just treat them as people. Do what you say you're going to do as much as you can. Because if you do something wrong or sketchy, word gets out. I know the people to avoid. And like, even back in my old market, I think we had like a blacklist or something of sketchy wholesalers, sketchy investors, like not to work with, because people would just do stuff. So don't be sketchy. That's the thing. All right. Any questions on relationships for getting deals? Does anyone think they're going to do that? This method? Okay, nice. This is one of my favorite strategies. It is paid, slightly paid, but it's not the most expensive. This was my bread and butter for years. You're basically just cold calling homeowners and you get to talk to them directly. So there is no middleman. There is no realtor. There's no wholesaler. You just talk straight to the homeowner. And you definitely often, if you're a good negotiator, you get way bigger discounts on those than you do on on-market deals or agent relationships, wholesalers. It's just how it works. So there's no miscommunication. The downside, it costs some money for the data. So if you're cold calling, unless you're willing to go on like a truepeoplesearch.com and type every single property in there and like put the number, like it's going to cost some money to actually get the data and get the phone numbers for these people. But it could be well worth it. So all you need is a data provider, so something to give you the addresses and homeowners that you want to target and their phone numbers. You need a CRM. Again, it could be just Google Sheets at the beginning. You need a phone. And ideally, if you're going to do this method, I would highly, highly recommend a dialer. I hand dialed on my phone for quite a bit, and it sucked. Like I might call 50 people an hour versus the dialer at least 300 an hour, at least like maybe 500 an hour, maybe some hours like you can adjust the dialer so you're calling like 1,000 an hour and you'd miss a lot of calls. But it's like a website where, you know, if you're hand dialing, you have to do this and then do this every single time. With a dialer, you can put a list of properties and the phone numbers into the website. You click a button and it just starts dialing. And if you have a headset or headphones connected, you can just wait there and you wait for someone to pick up. So I recommend a dialer for sure. Most dialers will range like $150 a month. So if you're considering this method, I would find a way to save $150 a month in your budget, whether you just eat a little bit less or you get cheaper foods or something, because hand dialing sucks. And it works. Like you can do it. I've gotten deals doing that at the beginning, but just knowing, because I didn't even know what a dialer was. That's why I did it. I hand dialed. But once I learned and once I started using this, everything changed. So
Your favorite dialer?
my favorite's Ready Mode, but I would say it's not the most user-friendly at the beginning. Once you get the hang of it, it's amazing. My first dialer was Mojo, and Mojo is probably the most user-friendly, but it's like my least favorite now. So it's good for beginners, and then later you kind of, I like Ready Mode though, $150 a month, and then you pay for some numbers and stuff.
Also, one question: what's your favorite data provider?
So we use Wealthy Deals.
Wealthy-
It's part of the program. So if you don't use that, because I don't think we give that out to like non-student. Are you student in the program?
No.
Yeah, I don't think we give out to non-students. I for years used PropStream. It was
Yes,
fine.
It is. Yeah, it's like all depends on the
Yeah, and if you want free, I think PropWire is free. PropWire,
Okay.
but I think you still have to skip trace the data and pay for that. Yeah, but I think like to find and filter stuff to say like, oh, give me absentee owners, tax delinquent. I think PropWire is free.
I go frustrated.
Like what could you use like an MLS?
Kinda, it's a software that helps you like identify homeowners, and you can filter what kind of homeowners they are. So I can go into there and I can say, give me homeowners that have at least 50% equity. I want to know the people who are tax delinquent, who have liens on their property, who are about to get foreclosed on. Like, you can put that stuff in there.
And has the information of the seller also you can.
Well, it has seller information, but you don't have their number information until you do what's called a skip trace it. And it's just, skip trace is just, you have your list, you put it into a website, a skip trace website, and it spits out their phone numbers. Yeah. So this is the strategy, and let me explain how it works. This is, well, not the text, because we're cold calling. Call homeowners. To give you perspective, if you're on a triple line dialer, and a triple line dialer is the dialer website, but you're able to call 3 people at one time. A lot of dialers, like most dialers can do this at least. You can, if you're on that kind of dialer, you can call at least 300 an hour. So on a 6-hour shift, someone can probably call 1,800 people for a 6-hour shift. So for people that are new, they're like, wow, that's crazy. Call 1,800 people in a 6-hour shift. If you bump it up to like 6 lines, you can double it, but you just miss more calls. So depending on the list, you would filter and like change how many lines you want to dial on at a time. All you have to do, you call, you ask, do you want to sell your house? You just ask to sell, and you can ask it any way you want. Like, you're thinking about selling, do you want to sell? You're probably not interested in selling this one. Like, you can say anything just to find out, do they want to sell? If it's no, like hard no, you always ask, do they have anything else? Do you have any other properties you want to sell? Do you know any vacant houses in the area? Do you know anyone else that wants to sell? These are questions that you can ask after. And depending on how nice the person is, you can ask a little bit more questions. Like, you might ask all 3. But if they're mean, it's kind of, you just ask one and they'll hang up, which is fine. You get rejected over and over and over again. Find out if they want to sell. If they do, and it takes quite a bit to find those people, especially if you don't have the best data that's using like AI, all you're doing is you want to find out, do they want to sell? Why do you want to sell? Like, what's their motivation? What's your timeline? And then what's like the general condition of this house? And a lot of sellers will lie anyways about the condition, but I at least want to know about, like, is it fire damage? Is it burnt down? Or is it livable? They'll usually be honest about that stuff. So that's all it is. And kind of the same thing when I talked about the MLS. If you're not aggressive enough on these leads, you also will burn your money. Because if a lead comes in and they actually do want to sell, set yourself an in-person appointment. If that's the market you're targeting. So if you're living in Vegas and you're targeting here, go in person, because it's just easier. If you make an offer on the phone, they could very easily just go and hang up, and you will never contact them again. They'll reject every single call. You'd have to call on different numbers and different things. But if you're in person in their home and you have rapport built with them and you make a low offer, and they go, oh, it sucks, they're not just going to kick you out. They're going to still talk to you. So make the appointment, try to close in person, and then follow up when you can't get stuff closed. That's the general method, but I kind of want to know what your guys' questions are on this. Yeah.
How do you know when it's you close the deal? Like,
Oh, when they sign the contract.
it's,
Yeah.
you
So-
bring always a contract with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you set an appointment, and ideally you already have an idea of where they're kind of wanting to sell. Like, you're asking, well, what do you want for this? Or you know their timeline. You know that you might be close on price. It might be a little far off, kind of like with those same MLS deals. But if that's the case, you make an appointment in person, you bring a contract with you, and you talk to them. And if it works, you have them sign right there. Yeah. And then follow up. You had something.
Yeah, how many, like, percentage-wise, you tracking your numbers?
Huh?
How many times would you get the appointment on the first try? Or is it mainly the follow-up?
Oh, you can set appointments on the first try. Yeah, if someone wants to sell, you can probably set an appointment first try. But if they don't want to sell, like, yeah, no chance. Yeah, maybe to give you guys some perspective, this is my old data. I don't even know what the new data is going to be, because we'll have better data now with AI and stuff. But the old data, I think I got a lead every 1,000 dials on average. So like, when you go over the course of the 1,000,000 dials that we had or so, every 1,000 usually pulled a lead. Now because we use Wealthy Deals and there's AI, it's probably going to be much better, because we can target who actually wants to sell at discounted prices. But if you have that in mind, that means you got to get rejected like 999 times before the one. And so it takes a lot of effort.
Did you guys ever host like phone blitz here in the office with you?
Oh, like if everyone's calling? Maybe I should. Maybe that's my next meetup. I don't know.
Would you be up for it if I come over and call with you?
Probably. because I'm calling too. I'm calling a lot. I'm not calling homeowners, I'm calling wholesalers.
Right.
So our conversations should, but maybe I should do that.
I'd be up for it.
I'll think about how to organize it if that's a thing. Yeah, see, good. Follow up. All right. And which method works best? They all work. The methods are just tools and ways you can find deals. You have to pick one that you think is best for you. If you have absolutely no money, and that's fine, probably do a free one. If you have some money to spare and you're trying to get these deep discounted deals, maybe you can cold call, or you can still do the free stuff. My philosophy is always do the free stuff first. Even here, like, so I used to live in Vegas, but now I'm back from like 3 months ago. Since I came here, it's a brand new market for me. I didn't just automatically do like these insane paid methods. We started calling agents, started calling wholesalers, started attacking the MLS. And then now that we have that system, now we're starting to implement the paid. And that's for us being in business for like 5 years. And my partner, Brian, he's been in the business way longer. So we still are doing the free stuff first. So I always recommend doing that stuff first. So choose the one that works best for you in terms of your budget, whatever your lifestyle is, because, and time too. Like, let's say if you don't have so much time to cold call, it might be more efficient to just hit up wholesalers if you're buying, or to call agents. So it's kind of time constraints as well. But with any of the method, you got to track your stuff. Has anyone heard of a KPI? Anyone not know what it is? Oh, there we go. KPIs, they're key performance indicators. So that's, it's just metrics that show you how you're doing. So for example, on MLS, a key performance indicator is how many offers do you make? For cold calls, how many calls are you making? For networking, it's like how many calls are you making and kind of how many offers are you making? So it's just stuff to track to make sure you're doing enough volume. And if someone was new to cold calling, for example, and they've been calling for 3 months and they haven't gotten a deal, I'd ask them, what are your KPIs? Like, what do your numbers look like? And they might tell me, well, I called 100 a day for 30 days. And I go, oh, that's why. Like 100 a day for 30 days, that's 3,000 dials. That you might get a couple leads, you might close one, but you need a lot more. And so KPIs allow me to see into a person's business very quickly. That's what we do for coaching. Like, we look at how things are and we're like, oh, that's why it's not working. So I can look at someone's dialer data and I could say, oh, your data's going bad. Or I can say, like, something's wrong with your numbers. I see this data's off, because I've just like seen it so many times. And then you won't know yours until you do it over and over again. And like every time I am giving a lot of what my data had looked like. I don't want you guys to also like think that's what you're going to get, because we'll have different skill sets, different like things that we're doing that's not the exact same. So if I tell you, oh, I used to get a lead every 1,000 dials, it might not be that for you. You might have suckier data. You might be worse on the phone. You might have all these things that are not as good. So I'm just telling you what like my experiences are too. Now, KPIs, there's 2 different types. There's the leading indicators. So there's the inputs, the offers made, calls made, all that stuff, like the activity metrics. And there's lagging indicators. These are the outputs, like your goal, how many leads you're getting, how many deals you're closing. So if you're unhappy with your results or your outputs, the first thing I always ask is like, look at your inputs and be honest with yourself. Don't ever mess up your data because you want to feel good about yourself. If you called 100 a day, don't say you called 1,000. Like, track your stuff. Because typically, if you're not happy with your results, it's usually because of what was happening 3 months ago. That's always what happens. So there's a lag behind it. Does that make sense? Okay. And hold yourself accountable. I like accountability partners a lot. Accountability is a big part of what we do with our students and just talking to friends. Like, I like to be held accountable because it works. So it's one thing, unless you're just a monster and you can hold yourself accountable to anything all the time, that's great. But it also helps to have other people around, especially people going like just like this, who are going through the same exact thing that you guys are going through. It helps to know, oh, like, you're struggling with this too. Oh, I'm struggling with this. I didn't hit my numbers, or you hit your numbers. How did you do it? It helps to be around that. So hold yourself accountable. And the biggest thing I tell people too is you have to understand what you're willing to sacrifice. And that might be harder to hear because people think it's easy. I might be making it seem like it's easy, but it's a lot of work. Like my first year, I had no mentorship, by the way. When I first went full time into this, because I bought one rental and I thought I was the man. I was like, all right, I got one rental, I'm 21. I quit my job. I quit my job and I went all into flipping. First year I made no money. And I was like, oh, this is hard. It's tough. And then once I put my head down and cold called, like legitimately just cold call as much as possible with a dialer, it was lonely. It was like cold calling, because you can legally cold call 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So I was calling 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And sellers at night were like, dude, it's 9. Like, why are you calling me? Like, do you want to sell? It was always that. So it's hard work. But if you're willing to do it, I know you can do it. And it's life-changing. To give you some perspective, some of our students, one notably that's in our like profit program, he had no real estate background at all. He was an iron worker. And he closed his first deal after 3 months of just listening to my stuff. It was a 40K assignment deal. So like 40K dropped into his bank account. And he called me, he's like, this is life-changing. And he has a couple deals that he's working on that I think he'll get like 20K on too, and within 4 months. So if you're, but he was calling nonstop. That's the caveat. It wasn't easy. Like he listened to me and he did it. So he was coachable. So if you actually do the work, I know you can do it, but it does kind of suck. And that's okay. You have to embrace the boring, embrace the work, because the boring is where the money is made. Like we're not doing anything different really than what I'm teaching you guys, but we're doing so much of it that it's hard to catch up. So in terms of setting goals, here's how you set a goal. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but I just want to remind you, whenever you set a goal, don't just say, I'm going to make some calls this week. Make a SMART goal. Make sure it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So I'll go over this real quick. Specific, make it clear. Not just, what am I going to do? It's like, I'm going to work on my business this week. No, I'm going to make cold calls. Measurable, make sure you can measure it. How many cold calls? For the week, for the day, whatever your goal is. Daily goals and weekly goals. Make sure it's achievable. Don't think you're going to call $100,000 and 100,000 people in a day. That's not realistic. So make sure it's achievable. Make sure it's relevant. So don't say you're, and actually that might seem the most obvious one. That's where most people mess up, because most people tell me my goal is to get a deal this week or as fast as possible. And then they tell me what your goal is for the week. And they'll say, well, yeah, I want to add my buyers list. Like that has nothing to do with your goal, but people do it. Does that make sense? Is that resonating with anyone? Like working is not the same as productivity. You have to be doing the right things all the time. So when shiny objects come, we're like, I think I have to do this and build my buyers list. I think I have to make my spreadsheets. No, you don't. None of that will make money. That's why I didn't make money the first year. I got a business card. I got an office. I got other things. And I was like, I wasn't doing lead generation. I wasn't calling. So if you just pick up the phone, you will change your life. And then make sure it's time bound. So make sure you have the goal, whether it's a daily, like by the end of the day, I'm gonna have this done. By the end of the week, on Friday, I'm gonna have this done. So that's all I have for you guys. But in terms of this is also like, this is my pitch to you guys. It's not paid, but here's how we can work together. This goes just to like a Google form. But wholesalers, if you're a wholesaler here, we want to buy your deals. We're buying 2 to 4 a month here in Vegas, Henderson, and North Vegas. If you're a buyer, sometimes we wholesale deals. We wholesaled last month, one deal. We don't do it a lot, but if we have one that we're passing on, whether we're just out of money or we don't want to take on more risk, we'll wholesale the deal. And they're good deals. We're not going to send you crap like most wholesalers. Private money lenders. So if you have money and you maybe don't want to get fully involved with the flipping game or the rental game, let us know. Sometimes we raise money, not all the time. We often use our own. But when we're out of money, we start raising money too. So if you ever want to raise money, like we usually pay at least 10%, 12% more, just depending on the deal. Like if the deal's tight, obviously less. If it's a great deal, we'll give you a lot. Agents, we'll give you commission on the deals that you send us. Depending on the kind of deals, actually, it's not even commission. Some agents ask for different things. We're flexible. Like if the deal works, we'll pay you whatever you want. If it works with your numbers, we don't care. Contractors, if anyone's a contractor here, we'll bring you lots of homes to work on. So scan this, please, if you want to work together. But any questions from me?
So if I find a deal and I want to wholesale it, do I contact you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll buy it?
Yeah, we'll buy it.
Cool.
Yeah. People are sending, it's constant. They're always sending us and we're always looking and we just we do our best. We try our best. So send it over.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you scan this, it'll be put onto Google Sheet, me or someone, probably I'll try to call you guys or someone on my team. And if you already know me, like if we're already in our system or we're texting you, you don't have to do this. Like you're already in the system. But if you're new to me and us, yeah, scan it. And any other questions? Do you guys like this?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
No one? I'll wait because I know it takes time.
Is there a minimum for private money lending?
Yeah, usually we at least 50K. I mean, I've raised money for people, for friends that were like 25K, 35K, and I kind of regretted it because it was just so much extra work that I didn't want to do. Because like dealing with multiple people.
And what's the average on the private money lender? What's the average you pay?
Probably average like 12%.
12% for how long? 3 months? 4
Oh,
months?
and annualized for usually up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months.
Yeah.
So 12%, basically 6%. Okay.
Yep. And we always have more deals. So if someone was actually really looking to just let their money sit, like let's say they lent money on one deal, we can always tell you like, here's the amount that you've earned plus your interest. Like we'll send it back to you, and or you can just choose like, well, can you just put in the next one? Like we can always do that too.
And did you give 1099 on that?
Yeah, you can give this.
Okay.
If we're giving, yeah, if it's over a certain amount, I don't know,
600 -ish.
some 600, yeah,
600.
which is everyone, yeah.
Everyone.
Okay, so before I break you guys out into, what time is it, 12:18? Yeah, so now we're gonna network until 1:30, but before I break you guys out, I'm gonna make it easier for you. One, I'm gonna teach you how to network, and I do this at every single time because I want people to get the most out of it. And two, I'm gonna like have people split up so we can see who's who. So how people network. Most people come to a meetup if they're not familiar and they'll just talk to anyone. You're like, oh yeah, like how are you doing? How's your day? No, you don't care about people's days. You want to help your business and you want to help other people's business. So let's say if I'm a buyer, I am looking for wholesalers. I am looking for agents to send deals, new relationships like that. Like that's the main thing I'm looking for. If you're a wholesaler, you probably need buyers, or you might need other wholesalers just to talk to and talk about like strategy and things that they're going wrong. If you're an agent, you probably want buyers. Like everyone needs, if you have money and you want to lend it, you probably need a buyer or someone like that. Does that make sense? So what I like to do is I like to like show where people are at. So who is predominantly wholesaling here? Can you guys step over there? Just so you guys can like eye each other and like, oh, I want to talk to this group. I want to talk to him. Who is mainly buying? Can you step over there? Oh, it's a lot of buyers. Okay. So all the deals are over there. That work. All right.
I have to go show property.
Absolutely. So nice to meet you.
It
was a pleasure. Yeah, please. And then if you're, what's left? Agent? Oh, wait, there's all buyers.
I'm right down the street.
What are-
so we'll get together.
Absolutely. What are you guys?
I'm an agent.
Agents go in the middle?
What if you're both of those things?
Whatever your main one is. So now I want you guys to look at each other. So wholesalers, agents, buyers, and then make sure you have an idea who they are and start networking. So guys, feel free. I'm going to stop it at 1:30. And at 1:30, I'm going to break everyone out into mastermind groups. So everyone's going to sit down again real quick or maybe stand up. And you guys are going to break out into probably like groups of 4 or 5 for 30 minutes. Talk about what's going on in your business, like what you're struggling with, and be honest, and how you can help other people. Does that make sense? All right, go network. How's it going, man? Oh. Oh, I didn't give you a shout out. I'll do it. I can do that at the end.